Hello everybody, welcome again to another edition of Weekly Insight. My name is Michael Hennessy. I'm the pastor of Cornerstone Church here in Epping, Sydney, and if you're ever in our area, we'd love you to come and see us. You can see the website written on the screen there. Check us out, we'd love to have you come and see us. Last week I started a series entitled Called to Reach Up, and if you've been following this particular series that I've been doing, I believe that every Christian is called to reach out to people and make a difference in people's lives, a positive difference. But in order to do that more effectively, we are called to also from time to time reach up and make contact with God. And one of the examples I used in the last video clip that I did of a person who did that was a king called Hezekiah. Hezekiah was a godly king, and he was a king who had a mandate to reach out to other nations around him by showing them that it was possible for a nation to function properly and well under God and by living according to God's laws. Hezekiah came up against a crisis. There was a king, the king of Assyria called Sennacherib, who demanded tribute money from Hezekiah. Hezekiah refused to pay it, so Sennacherib decided he would march up to Jerusalem, where Hezekiah was based, destroy the city and destroy the nation. And everything that Hezekiah had worked for up until that point was now threatened, was under threat, and was about to be destroyed. Now Hezekiah, he was at a crossroads. He was in a crisis, and he was at a point where he had to reach up. How did he do it? If there's a verse I want to show you in not the book of Hezekiah, but the book of 2 Kings, chapter 19, verse 1. And let me just get it up here on the screen, as I usually do. It says the following. It says, as soon as Hezekiah heard the news, he tore off his clothes in sorrow and put on sackcloth. Then he went into the temple of the Lord. And in that particular verse, there are three things that I see, and I'll probably cover one of them just right now. But there are three things that I see as to how Hezekiah reached up successfully to God and averted the crisis that was on his doorstep. The first thing I see in this particular verse was that Hezekiah, he tore his clothes. And in that particular era of time, when somebody tore their clothes in that particular culture, that was a sign they were very, very upset. And Hezekiah was upset. He was taking very, very seriously the crisis that was on him. And I really believe that as Christians, sometimes when we're confronted with a crisis and doing good, one thing that we can learn from Hezekiah's example is this: that he took the thing seriously. He wasn't like an ostrich who buried his head in the sand, but rather he appreciated the seriousness of the situation, and in doing that, he was well on his way to seeing the thing solved. There's an example of a history. There was a man called General Douglas MacArthur, and if you know anything about the history of World War II, he was the man who was put in charge of administering the nation of Japan after they were defeated by the Americans. And he did that. And one of the things, it's interesting, one of the things that he actually requested of the church in America, and probably even the church in the Western world worldwide, was to fulfill the void, the religious void that was caused by the Japanese being defeated by the Americans. The Japanese considered their emperor to be a god. That God had now been defeated by the American God, so to speak, the Christian God. And so the Japanese were actually willing to, en masse, to follow the American God, to follow the Christian God. And so he asked for missionaries and for Bibles to be sent to Japan from 1945 onwards. And within a period of about 5 years, the nation received many, many Bibles in Japanese. And about 5,000 people from the Western world, according to what I've read, went as missionaries to Japan. But to be honest, it was a very, very minuscule number, because, to be honest, there were 71 million people living in Japan at the time, but only 5,000 missionaries were there to be salt and light amongst those people. And unfortunately, it was too little, and it was too late. In 5 years' time, the Japanese economy started to improve, and they didn't need God, or they consider themselves not needing God as much anymore, and the opportunity was lost to reach a whole nation for the Lord, because basically, in my opinion, the Western Church did not take the opportunity seriously, and they didn't take the crisis seriously, and the opportunity was lost. But as Christians, if we want to reach up to God effectively when we're confronted with a crisis, the first thing we have to do is tear your clothes. Don't literally tear your clothes. I'm not going to give you a visual illustration, but you know what I'm saying. Don't be like an ostrich. Don't leave your head in the sand when a crisis comes your way, but take it seriously. You know, look, tear your clothes, so to speak, and realize the seriousness of the situation. God bless you, and we'll see you next time. See ya. Bye.